Okay, Pirkei Avos Rabbeinu Yona. In Perek Dalid, Mishnah Chaf. So this Mishnah starts off with a very interesting Tana, Elisha ben Avuya Oimer. Elisha ben Avuya was the Tana who ended up, as the Gemara says in Chagig and Daf Tezvav, ended up being Michal Shabbos, the famous Ma'aseh, him and Rabbi Meir, and they were walking on Shabbos, and he told Rabbi Meir to stop. He was on his horse, and Meir was walking, and he told Rabbi Meir, you can't go further, because he was counting the steps of the horse. Shabbos, you have to stop here. So the Mishnah quotes Elisha ben Avuya. So obviously this is before he had his philosophical issues with Yiddishkeit. And he says like this, he says, Haloimed yeled lamahu doimen, someone who teaches a child. So what is that similar to? L'dioi ksuva al niyar chadash, like ink being written on a brand new piece of paper, or on a brand new luach, on a brand new board. Haloimed zakein lamahu doimen, and the one who teaches an older person, what is that similar to? L'dioi ksuva al niyar machuk, like the ink written on a piece of paper or a tablet, an olden day tablet, that was erased. We'll see the Rabbeinu is going to explain exactly what that's. So let's see, before I go right to the Mishnah, let's see how the Rabbeinu explains Elisha ben Avuya. Zok the Rabbeinu, ki ein kaksiva b'niyar chadash yichol limachik. The strongest writing is on a blank piece of paper where there was never any writing on it. The hardest to erase is the writing that you wrote the first time. So too the Torah one learns when they're younger is the simple understanding will never be forgotten from his heart. That what your kids are sponge, the young kids, they could memorize things that's harder for adults to memorize, and they're very receptive to just bringing in a lot of information. As long as one sets their standards high, the expectations high for the child will rise up to that in normal circumstances. And whatever he learns at that age sticks with the person. But Halamid, Torah Zakin, the person who learns Torah to an older person, that's like writing on a piece of paper that was already erased. There was ink on it that was erased, now I'm writing again. Shemaheri said that ksiva will not be a permanent ksiva. It'll be lost shortly. So too Torah learned when a person's older is forgotten quickly. It brings a mashal that Limud b'bnei Hanairis, one who learns when he's younger, kipituach alav, that's like you're inscribing in a stone, you're etching into a stone. Halimud b'bnei Zikna, and one who learns when he's older, kikoisiv alachol, it's like writing on the sand. That's not going to have a long kiyum. But he says the older person shouldn't say, "Hein ani eitz yavish," I'm like an old withered tree. But achash ein hatar miskiyem is biyodi lamay almad v'rik iga. So why should I learn? Once a person is an adult, well, why should he learn? It's already beyond his capacity to really remember what he's learning. So he brings a mashal, and he says that you have a king who hired, or any employer hired two workers to fill up. Each one got a jug with a hole in it. And they were told, if you fill it up with water, and you get paid for that. So the Tippish said, what's the point? I'm going to try to fill it up, and the water's going to come out the bottom. I'm not even going to try. The Chacham said, what do I care? The point is, this guy says he's going to pay me. If I fill up the bucket, I'll do my best. He knows there's a hole in the bucket, so I'll fill it up to my best of my abilities. I'll get my schar, my wage for that. So to the Chacham, HaKadosh Baruch Hu learned Torah. Whether a person's able to remember, not able to remember, that's not his fault. It's just the mitzias. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, learn, even though the person is not able to retain, he still has to learn. Reminds me of a story that my brother-in-law told me from his father, Baron Soloveitchik Zatzal, that he had a stroke. When he had a stroke, the doctors told him that he's not going to be able to, his mind won't be the same. He's going to be only have a very superficial tfisa understanding of things. He won't be able to engage in the study of Torah the same way he was beforehand. So, okay, that's what they told him. So one day my brother-in-law comes into his hospital, to the room, and he sees his father is learning the Daf Yomi. Now for a Soloveitchik to learn Daf Yomi, his mom does not, it's like water and oil, it doesn't go together. They learn very in depth and very thoroughly. So he asked his father, like, what's going on? He said, the doctors told me that I'm not going to be able to get to the depths of the Torah, so I'm going to be an Erel Chabal Bas. I can't be a Rosh Shiva anymore, I can't be a Maggid Shir. I'll be an Erel Chabal Bas, whatever Kadosh Baruch Hu wants me, so learn Daf Yomi. That's an example of someone who, it's not about what I want, what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. So that's what Elisha ben Avuya is saying, that a person who is younger will retain more, older person will be harder to retain, which is definitely true. That being said, Rabbi Akiva was chayzer b'tshuva. This is already Rabbeinu ends. It's like my understanding of it. Rabbi Kiva was 40 years old when he was Chayzer B'tshuva, and he did pretty well. Like Moshe Rabbeinu also wasn't young when he started learning. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand that which Rabbi Kiva was darshaning from the Kutza Shel Yod and the Tagim, all the things on the crowns, on the letters in the Torah. We have many examples of people who begin learning very late in life and they become tremendous Talmidei Chachamim, and B, even people who are learning when they were younger, but still the information they acquire when they're older stays with them. So I think it's the Chidush Arim. Says that when it says in the Mishnah, when one teaches a child what it's similar to, so it doesn't mean, it's not an age. It's not how old the person is. It's the person's approach to it. A child has this enthusiasm, this young enthusiasm that he's so excited to start learning his Aleph Beis, so excited to start learning Mishnayos, whatever it might be. So if one approaches Torah with that enthusiasm of a child, so then the Torah will stay. But even a young person who approaches the Torah with the enthusiasm of an older person who's like, okay, I learned it already, I'm not so interested, then it's not going to stick. It's not about the age, and I think this is definitely true. I think we see this, that what a person's excited about, he remembers. What a person's not excited about, he's not going to remember. So that's a way to understand and even to encourage those of us already older. So what's the point? That says if a person really enjoys it and really feels that it's relevant to them, they'll remember no matter what age. But that being said, definitely the younger person is, the more it sticks with them. That's Elisha ben Avuya. I guess he's emphasizing the importance of starting young and the importance of having, according to Chidush Arim, having that childish, so to speak, approach to Torah, as far as the enthusiasm.
It's just also to remind us that whatever we teach a child goes into their deep memory banks. In other words, there's a Rebbe has a huge responsibility to a child. They're teaching them Torah, but they're also teaching them Midos, and a child observes the Rebbe, see how they act and how they interact with people. So not only is it Torah on a blank slate, but also all the other things that a Rebbe or a parent might be teaching a child. That's something that sticks with them and is hard to erase over time. So is that what he's also saying? Not just limud Torah, but limud everything?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is limud everything. I mean, that's also part of Torah. I mean, the truth is, this applies even to math and science. If you teach a kid, although my mother taught me when I was a little kid, the capital of every single state. I know the capital of New York is Albany, right? And here it's Tallahassee, I think, right? Florida's Tallahassee. I don't remember the capital of West Virginia. Richmond, Virginia is Virginia. But so I knew all that, but I don't remember that. So, I mean, one has to chazer, I guess, at some point, or depend. What I'm pointing out is, this applies to not just Torah. Number one, anything. When a kid learns when he's young, languages. Kids can pick up languages like that. And then the adults have to go to Ulpan to try to learn, and it's a very, difficult process. But the second point is, and that's to your point, that Torah is not just limud Torah. This is limud Torah. Limud Torah is learning Mesilas Yesharim. It's also limud Torah. So yeah, it means everything. And gadol shimush yosem limud. The one mahalach is that the way the shimush, the way the Rebbe acts, is also part. I mean, that's a separate discussion. What's considered chinuch? You say many times, what you tell someone to do, that's an important part of chinuch. But more so is the tone a person sets. What I find with my children as well, what I tell them to do, they'll do, they won't do, it depends on whatever's going on. But the way I act, I see them mamish mimicking. I had this experience in Melbourne. There was a kid who was bothering, it's happened anywhere, it's not just in Melbourne. There was someone who was bothering one of my children in school. And so my wife said, maybe we should call the parents. So I said, I know the kid's father, right? And the kid's father is a Vilda Chaya. I know this guy. He's a sharp tongue. He's a very difficult person. So there's no point in speaking to the parent. The kid is mamish like the parent. You see it mamish, it's unbelievable how but that's not because the father said, I want you to have a sharp tongue and bully people. The kid sees how the father acts at home, in shul, whatever it is, and then the kid mimics that. So there's no question about it. It's stam. There's no shakas to this Mishnah per se. But from an educational perspective, the indirect chinuch is definitely much more potent as far as midas are concerned than direct chinuch. And it's the same thing even with Torah itself. I very rarely at my Shabbos table say, okay, guys, I have a Dvar Torah I want to share. The Ramban says everyone falls asleep, right? I always try to bring it out from a different angle, like asking a question. I forgot what I had a Maisa that brought out Lifnei Iver. Instead of saying, okay, kids, I want to teach you about Lifnei Iver now. Like the direct chinuch, it bores. The Rabbi says never start a shir by saying the Ramban says. When you're dealing with kids, even adults, the Ramban says everyone falls asleep. You have to bring it out more from a Maisa, so that's indirect. I'm sharing with you Geshmak Maisa. At the end, I'll zustel the limit I want to say. You can't always do that. A Rebbe in class has to sit there with rows of students and teach. There's nothing that can be can replace that. With all the games, all the cute zachen, at the end of the day, kids have to learn sitzfleisch. They have to learn to sit. They have to sit in rows. It could be fun too. There is a time and a place to sit and just teach. But definitely, as much as possible, you try to do it in a fun way. Why is the Gemara not just listing halachas? Why does the Gemara always have maisim, a lot of stories with information that doesn't seem to be relevant, like where they were when it happened, and they were at a meal, and they were walking here, and they were walking there. We had a Gemara in Brachos recently that someone's sitting at his he's making his son's wedding at someone else's house, and they were sitting and eating, and then a whole maisa. What's that relevant? The relevance is that you understand it better. It could be there are deeper reasons why the Gemara have all these maisim. You look in the Ben Yehoyada and the Gra, they'll explain it. On a simple level, the question and answer, the stories, just makes a person remember better. So there's no question about it that what you're saying is true, that the less direct chinuch has a very powerful effect on the student. Okay, the Mishnah continues. Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda Ish Kfar Habar Yoim. Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda says, Haloi made min haktanim l'mahu doimer. So now we're talking about the teacher. Until now we're talking about the student. Now we're talking about the teacher. So someone who learns from a katan. Now obviously it doesn't mean a 5-year-old. It means a younger person. What's he comparable to? La'oichel anovim kehois v'shoyse yain mikitoi. A person who's eating unripe grapes and unfermented wine. Yain mikitoi. Right from the gat, right from the wine press. So it's no good. Haloimid min hazekeinim. A person who learns from the old and the elders. L'mahu doimeh. La'oichel anovim b'shuloi. Is eating ripe grapes. V'shoyse yain yosh. And he's drinking old wine. That is Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda Ish Kfar Abal. Zok Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Rabbi Oimer. It's a machlokes. Rabbi says no. Al tistakel bekankan. Don't look at the vessel. Don't look at how many wrinkles the person has, how many gray hairs he has. Look inside at the chachma. Yesh kankan chodosh malayoshin. You can have a new vessel with a lot of fermented old wine. 20-year-old wine that's delicious. V'yoshan, you can have an old vessel, shafil chadash ein bay, doesn't even have new wine. So whereas Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda Ishkar Bavli is saying, go for the older Rebbeim, the Rabbi Donasi is saying, don't look at the kankan, don't look at the vessel, look at what's inside. Because you can have a young person that has a lot of chachma and an older person who doesn't. Says Rabbeinu, what's pshat in this machlokes? So the Rabbeinu says, the longer a person has time to contemplate what he's learned, not just that, things grow on you, right? So you learn a certain sugya, you learn a certain halach, and then all of a sudden you come back to it a few years later, a few months later sometimes, and I didn't even realize that. There's a certain understanding a person has when he's familiar with the concept of the sugya for a long time, and then he's able to see things he wasn't able to see the first time. That's the first thing Rabbeinu says. That chachma needs to be misyashein on the person. So a person in his 70s has been sitting with Bava Kama for 50 years, for half a century, right? So his havana of the sugya will be much clearer than a person who's 35 and has only had it for 10 years. V'halom min haktanim, says the Rabbeinu, what's he similar to? Eating the grapes that are unripe. The chachma hasn't had a chance to cook inside. His gear says, Meir says, our gear Rabbi Donasi says, no, don't look at the kankan. Says the Rabbeinu, the chashivas of old wine will not be lost in a new kli. So if the katanim, if the younger ones, if they're smarter or they have more wisdom, I should say, than the older ones, first one from the katanim. This is the difference between Rabbi Donasi and Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosi let's say you have Chachma in both Zikanim and Ktanim. You should learn by the Zikanim because their Chachma is Mevushelis. So you have a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old that know the same amount, but there's a Maila in the 75-year-old that he's had 50 years to think about it. And Rabbi Nasi says, we don't go after if you find a katan, a younger person who has he's a novain, understands things well, there's a lot of chachma, you should learn in front of them. Then he goes on to bring a pasuk in Elihu at the same thing. So it's interesting machlokes where Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Ish Kfar Bavli is saying that, I guess, all us being equal go to the older one. Obviously, if the older one doesn't know anything, and the young one is Talmid Chacham, go to the young one. But if you have two people, and the only difference that I could see is their age, I should go for the older one. Whereas Rabbi Nasi is saying, no, if the shot's up, you have to assess each person based on their own merit. So once, Rabbi Kaplan in Shir, I forgot what the connection was. He was giving a shmooze probably, and he once actually shared the following thought that he had. He had Bachrim coming to his yeshiva from Mir, Brooklyn. Mir, Brooklyn, at that time, Shmuel Birnbaum was still alive, Zatzali was still alive. And Shmuel Birnbaum was like from Alta Mirs, and an older man, probably in his 80s. I don't remember exactly his age, probably in his 80s, not his high 70s. And Rabbi Kaplan at that time, I'm not sure his age also, maybe he's in his early 50s or maybe in his 40s, thinking to himself, how is it shayach that a Bacher is coming from Shmuel Birnbaum to my shir? Like, how could I do that? Like, how does that, is that not a bizarre? Like, how does that work? So he said that the Bacher is not coming to my shir. So I'm just saying over exactly what my Rabbi, Rabbi Mishur Soloveitchik, told me. And he's saying over exactly what Rav Beryl Soloveitchik told, his father told him. And he's saying over exactly what his father, Briskerov, told him. So essentially, the Bacher is going from the shir of Shmuel Birnbaum to Rabbi Mishur shir, or to Rav Beryl, to the Briskerov shir. It's like his shir is not, he's not saying over his chidushim. Obviously, every person has chidushim. But he's saying over exactly, and they mamish mimic, they try to do even word for word, exactly the way the Briskerov said. And Rav Schechter, on the American side of the family, said the same thing about Rav Yashaber, about Rabbi Soloveitchik, that he said certain things, when he explained certain sugyas, the wording was strange. And he said it's because he was copying exactly how Reb Chaim said it. He learned with Reb Chaim for its kufa. It's exactly the same way. The point being over here is that even though he's young, but he's saying over exactly what he learned from the older Rabbanim. That being said, we do have a machlokes here, interesting machlokes, whether a person should always go for the older one, or a person should go for the younger one if he has the knowledge, they should go for him. So the Rabbeinu points out that who was it? Elihu in Eov, as one of Eov's friends who came to comfort him, he said, "Amarti yomim yedaber v'roiv shonim yoidiu chachma." Originally, he said that, like Rabbi Yossi Bar Ben Yehuda, that the longer a person is around, the more chachma will have. And then afterwards, then he saw that even a young person can also understand it. So it sounds like the Rabbeinu Yona is going more like Rabbi. It's better to go to a Yalav Chacham from the Ish Zakin Nesu Panim Shenu Kamei B'Chachma. So he understands the machlokes is, I have an older Rav who is a certain level of Talmid Chacham, and I have a younger Rav who is a bigger Talmid Chacham. And obviously there's a certain, if the younger Rav is leaps and bounds ahead, there's a certain, they're similar in a certain way, but the younger one is a bigger Talmid Chacham. Who should you go with? So according to Ben Yoyin, it sounds like we're going to paskin based on Elihu and Eov, like Rabbi Nasi, that the Iker is the Chacham. And there's definitely a Maila in being old and having the experience, but at the end of the day, the more Chacham a person has, the better it is. Someone's told me that you have brighter people and less bright people. You have people who are able to understand things. Someone said that a genius is someone who's able to think slow, quickly. I mean, everybody has to think slow, which is the concept here, that to have 50 years of mulling over a sugya and letting it grow on you, ain't no doimit to having 5 years. But there are certain people that are able to reach that level of clarity in 5 years. They're able to think slow, fast. So it could be that's what Rabbi Nasi holds.
Okay. Go on.
So
we're signing off and coming back in.